Hello. 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 Okay, we're going to start in around about 5 minutes time. Okay, so thank you for joining this first foray from Friends of Littlewoods into streaming some of the education sessions we do on YouTube. This is not going to replace the 7th session for the Happy Through Horticulture gardening course. We will redo a lot of what I'm going to do today when we come back together at Gorsham Community Gardens, but I didn't want another session where we missed out on doing something. So hopefully you'll be able to pick up some of the gardening tips that we're going to be doing down in Gorchin Community Garden. And, it's especially important for me to do this session because we missed the previous session due to Storm Dave. So I want to make sure that we're carrying on the flow from the kind of fun things that we're doing down in Gorchin. Okay, so if you came to the last session at Gorchin, you remember that we did some work on propagation. So we propagated mint and thyme and some other things that were readily available from Tesco's. And I want to kind of like carry on that theme because, especially with what's going on with the pressures on the cost of living, I want to thread that into what we're doing in terms of equipping people with gardening skills. And so a lot of what we're going to do today, and today is only going to be like very much a short and compressed session. We're going to be looking at not only some basic gardening skills, but we're also going to look at ways that we can kind of like save some pennies as well in terms of our food budget. So we'll do 3 things today. We will propagate scallions, spring onions. We'll propagate mustard and Nigella, and hopefully I won't cough too much. So here we go then. So let's start off with the scallions. And in prep for what I thought was going to be a big session down in Gorchin Community Garden, I bought a whole bunch of scallions. These are not going to go to waste. They're going to get used. But a really great hack that I've been taught is that you can not just eat a scallion once, but you can eat it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, potentially 5 times. And you do that by taking the part of the scallion that will be able to regrow and regenerate the scallion from that. So let's kick off and do that. It's quite a fun thing to start with. So here I've got some scallions from Tesco's. They didn't cost too much. They were just over £1. And I'm going to take the scallion out of the band there. And if you see the end of the scallion there, it has the roots attached to it. Now that root can regenerate the scallion after you have harvested it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one with a good root on, one that's not slimy now. I bought these a couple of days ago and I've kept them in water because that root system is active. And most are looking good. 1 or 2 are slimy. I'm going to leave the slimy ones. The slimy ones, I will clean those up, dress them, and they'll be in the pot, and what's left over, won't be receptive to regrow. But this one, the roots are in really good condition. See those there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut about 1 inch from the roots, and we're going to get some more scallions out of that. So there we go. Just had, forgive me, someone message into WhatsApp group, so I'm just going to respond to that. If you're trying to leave comments, leave comments in the WhatsApp as well as leaving comments on YouTube as well. I'm not sure what the issue is there, but just dial in on the WhatsApp if you want to ask anything. In fact, I'll put my phone there so we can see your comments coming in. Right, okay, my scallion. Okay, here it is. I've got a nice sharp knife, really, really sharp. I made sure that I've sharpened this to give a really nice clean cut on the scallion. And I'm looking along the length of the scallion, and it goes from quite a deep green at the end. Follow it along, it lightens and lightens and lightens. And where you really lose the green, that's going to be the point where I'm going to do the cutting now. If you really like to eat the lower lengths, then you can do, but you'll lose the bit that you want to then replant. So here we go. I'm just going to angle the camera down there a little bit so you can see. So I'm going to cut here. So that's just where it starts to transition from the green to the white. It's about an inch, maybe a little bit over. And I'm going to make a nice clean cut. There we go. There's the scallion. And we are going to eat this bit. Don't need to waste this. Of course, I'm going to get off the dry leaves. This is the one that we are going to plant. So again, I'm angling that down just so you guys can see. Spot that there. I've got some pots. I don't have many pots. Hopefully enough today, because all of my equipment is at Gorchin Community Gardens. So I did go out this morning. Now, I am not one for generally buying commercially available compost, but I had absolutely nothing else. And so I'm having to break some of my golden rules, but you know what? If you make most of your compost, then it's okay to buy a little bit, particularly in emergency situations like my own. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a nice lot of compost in there. So I've just filled it up. There we go. Compost's in there. Now, often when compost comes out of a bag, it's been compressed. It's a bit clumpy. These will have been stacked on pallets. So just crumble it with your fingers just to make sure that those delicate roots from the scallion, there he is able to penetrate there. And you know what, if it means just sort of like shaking that up a little bit and just breaking up some of those blocks, what we don't want is compressed compost. Now, there we go. I've got the compost in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get some pokey thing. I'm going to use this pen. I'm just going to make a hole in there. There we go. I'm going to get that scallion. I'm going to carefully, there we go, you see. And then I'm going to just press it down a little bit. And then I'm going to just press around just to make sure that it's stable, just a little bit, not too much. I don't want to compress that compost too much. But certainly it's gone in a place where the compost is really friable and those young roots should get down. So there we go. And then to look after this, now it's been planted. In fact, you know what? Let's do another one. Here is my clump of scallions. Let's find out what you see. These being left in water, one or two have gone a little bit slimy. If they go slimy, then they are no good. Don't plant them. They are not going to be receptive. This one, though, is in good condition. And again, I'm going to, there we go, just my serrated knife. Okay, remember, I'm having an inch, maybe a little over an inch, where it starts to transition from being that white light color. Oh, that smells great. And I've cut those. You can really smell those spring onions. Make a hole with my pen. This one, it's got quite a bigger base, so I'm going to there we go. Just a little bit of pressure around just to bring the soil up to it, just to hold it in place so it's vertically upright. I've got two in there. I probably wouldn't want to do too many more than that. Maybe I can get within this particular pot, and this pot is around about 8 centimeters in diameter. Maybe I could get one there and one there. I'll perhaps do that later, but I don't want to overcrowd this for sure, because otherwise the root systems will get intertwined, and then I'm in the process of pulling them apart and breaking them up, which I want to avoid. Okay, so looking after this and keeping it in good condition, well, I want to make sure that it gets, I want to keep the compost moist. So I'll be putting a tray underneath this. I will put it not on the windowsill because it'll get direct sunlight and it'll dry it out very quickly. So I want to put it where there is some shade and a fair amount of ambient light. And what I should see is, you know, within a week or just a little over, the root systems breaking out and establishing themselves, and then in good time, more scallions to eat. And as I say, you know, that should survive 3, 4, or 5 cycles. Obviously, sort of consider after several cycles within one pot refreshing the compost that you're using. But this is a great hack. Instead of buying scallions once and then having to go and get more, you can multiply that by 3, 4, or 5 times. Brilliant little hack. Okay, so that's that one. I will put that to one side. And we'll now move on to the mustard hack. Now, I don't know who of you out there would use mustard. I use mustard pretty regularly with cooking, particularly use it for some Mediterranean cooking that I do, and even some Asian cooking as well. And I had within the store, but I went and got some additional because I wanted to share these out of the group. I'll be bringing this to the next session. Some mustard seeds. Now, within that 60-gram container of mustard seeds, there are hundreds and hundreds of mustard seeds, okay? If you're buying it commercially in packets, you will pay a lot more. But if you go to the spice section within Tesco's, other supermarkets are available, then you can find mustard seeds, and the price for the mustard is a lot less. So how am I going to plant the mustard seeds? Well, similar to the scallion, I'm going to be using compost. I'll put them into compost. So let's prepare a little pot with some compost and getting those ready to go. Okay, just angle that down. Bring that across again. Again, I'm using the bagged compost because I have no alternative. Ideally, you would want to use compost that you've developed yourself. Again, if it's coming out from a bag, then make sure that, as I'm doing now, you break up blocks of compost in there that have become compressed. Okay, there we go. We've got our, now I've got a little bit too much in there. If you see that, I've filled it up right to the brim. So I'm just going to want to get rid of some there because I really want to ideally leave about 1 centimeters depth in the plant pot there when planting the mustard. Okay, that's better. That is much better. You can see that I've got about 1 centimeter from the base of the compost to the top of the pot. So that gives me a nice amount to cover over the mustard seeds. Okay, so let's grab the mustard seeds and let's get planting those. Top on to keep them nice and dry. Yeah, I'm estimating that there are maybe up to 1,000 mustard seeds in there. An awful lot, although you know that when you're doing cooking, you know, you would very quickly go through that. But we're going to turn these thousands of mustard seeds into tens of thousands of mustard seeds. So I've given a light sprinkling there of mustard seeds, if you can see those. Remember, not all will germinate, but you'll get around about 40, 50, maybe 60% germinating of those. And that'll form a mass that I can then sort of separate and allow each individual plant to grow once they start to germinate. Okay, so we've got the mustard seeds planted. And then I'm going to get a sprinkling of compost. I'll just pop those over the top. There we go. Giving them a nice cover. Right, I've got the covering there. So then what I'm going to do, very similar to the scallions, I'm going to be putting this somewhere where there is good light coming in, but not direct sunlight. So again, once these start to germinate, they would very quickly dry out if they are right within in the window and getting intense sunlight. So I'm going to want to put it somewhere where that it's more kind of ambient light. That's going to help me keep it moist. I'm going to, again, pop that in a dish. Be watering that probably, depending on how quickly they dry out. And, you know, I'm fortunate I've got quite good aspect in this room that it gets quite quickly this time of the year up to 20 degrees in here. So I'm going to want to be watering that fairly regularly to stop the compost from drying out. Then once those start to germinate, then I'm probably going to start splitting those up and replanting them in different pots. Now, just thinking a little bit sort of further down the line of when I may be harvesting those and what to do when harvesting them. So probably that should be a fully grown plant in about sort of 80 to 90 days. So that would be it's around sort of 3 months' time. So we're looking into the end of July. I'll harvest them when the pods are on the mustard plant, but not green pods. They need to have sort of started to go off color and be more of a sort of like a yellowy color. I'll take those pods and I'll want to separate the seeds within them from the pod. Do that by popping them in a colander and then the colander in a bowl. What I can then do is sort of like rub the pod between my fingers. That'll break open the pod and the seeds will fall down and they'll drop through the holes of the colander. But the colander should trap what remains of the pod casing. You know, 1 or 2 bits will go through, but I can easily pluck that out in the bowl below containing the seeds. And then probably I'm going to want to keep those seeds in a bag for 1 to 2 weeks before popping them in an airtight container for storage until I'm ready to plant those again. And starting off with 1 jar of mustard seed, I should become pretty much well sustainable in mustard seeds going forward. So there we go. Hack number 2. Okay, and we will do the last one. The last one is something that I was fairly new to discovering. That is Nigella. So if you Google Nigella it's a pretty multifunctional plant. Nigella looks great when the flowers appear on them. They can have nice creams and blues in them so that they look nice. Also, if you like to create sort of displays of dried plants, then you have the pods and they can look quite appealing. And then also Nigella is an ingredient for cuisine, particularly from Asia. We certainly use it at home here when we are creating some of our curries, and we pop the seeds in and get a pestle and mortar and grind it up. And it provides a nice sort of peppery oniony kind of flavoring to dishes. And what we're going to do is we're going to grow some Nigella, or at least kick off the Nigella. Now, maybe you remember back from days when you're in school, maybe you did this, you grew some cress. And you grew some cress by getting paper roll here and maybe a plate. I'm going to use here a container, and I'm going to just fold up paper here, pop it in the bottom. Let's show you that. There we go. Then I'm going to add a little bit of water. Bear with me. Straight tap water. Doesn't matter if it's chlorinated or fluorinated or whatever your local area, put in the water. Get our paper towel. We will just dampen that. I'm not going to pour it in. We don't want to put in too much. I want to control how much is going there. There we go. Dampen that towel. And as you would have done with cress in one of those school projects, possibly. I certainly remember doing it in primary school. Happy days. That's going to be my growing medium. Paper towel will stay wet, and it'll provide a substrate for the Nigella to anchor onto. Again, this costs just over £1 in Tesco's, but will be the source of my never-ending supply of Nigella. Yeah, so open that. It's got a very earthy smell to it, a very sort of spicy, earthy smell to it. It's nice. Just sprinkle a lid on. Here we go. That's plenty. There we go. See that there? Okay. And again, I'm going to pop that in a space that gets good sunlight, but perhaps avoid direct sunlight because it'll just dry out quickly. And then when the plants will germinate, it would just dry those plants out really quickly. So you don't want to fry your plants. So have them where it's not getting direct sun, but a good bit of ambient sunlight. And those will quickly germinate. And then from those germinated Nigella, you can either repot them or get them more established still within this paper towel medium. Okay, there are our 3 Tesco's hacks for supplies of things that you would use within dishes. We've covered mustard, Nigella. Nigella, if you look it up online, beautiful flowers. You can use that for some really nice flower displays. Again, if you dry flowers, create displays, that's a really good way if you're into the crafting and you do that. But also if you want to add that into your meals to kind of give it a little bit of edge, a little bit of kick, and also the scallions. So there we go. When we come back to Gorchin, I plan today to look at planting carrots as well. We'll do that in the planter that will be ready. I know that you guys have seen that planter in various stages of build, but it'll be ready to go when we meet up there again. And we'll also be doing potatoes now when researching this lesson. One of the great things I saw was how to turn a single spud into a big bag of spuds. That's a great hack. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. We'll be planting those within buckets for individual potato plants because it's just so easy to manage. Once a potato is grown, empty it out, bosh. your one potato has become 10 or 12 potatoes, there's a good couple of meals in there. It's really, really, really good to do that. Okay, so there we go. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. Again, hope to be back in Gortune really soon when all of the things have died down and when it's okay to use the roads and when there's no storms there or anything like that. So yeah, thanks very much for joining us and see you all soon. Bye now.